There aren't neo-Nazis waiting for the green light from the lady on The View. I want to talk about Whoopi Goldberg because I got so many texts this week because she attacked me the week before.
Sure.
So she was, everybody was like, oh, Bill, I get you're enjoying the karma. Free speech. She should be there. She shouldn't get a timeout.
Not every single thing.
Bill Maher just did what everyone's been wanting to do. He shut down Whoopi Goldberg with pure logic that left her stammering. It happened during what was supposed to be a normal segment on The View, but turned into an absolute massacre. You've seen clips of The View hosts talking over each other, but you've never seen one get completely dismantled like this. Maher exposed the hypocrisy of rich celebrities who lecture everyday Americans while having no clue what real people actually care about. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
I want to talk about Whoopi Goldberg because I got so many texts this week because she attacked me the week before.
Sure.
So she was, everybody was like, oh, Bill, I get you're enjoying the karma. There aren't neo-Nazis waiting for the green light from the lady on The View. But there is no fucking thing as karma, okay? Get over that. Whoopi.
Ever notice how celebrities who've never had to worry about paying rent love telling the rest of us what's wrong with our thinking? Bill Maher certainly did when he stepped into The View's territory, and he wasn't there to exchange pleasantries. Maher came armed with facts that the host couldn't easily dismiss, turning what they expected to be a friendly chat into an uncomfortable reality check.
Attacks me on a regular basis. She says stupid shit on a regular basis. They just happen to coincide with someone of her age who's a sophisticated person, and the impact of her comment. There is no impact. Whoopi Goldberg, who, by the way, I hope is still a friend. We can disagree with each other. Should not be canceled.
The tension started brewing when Maher pointed out something The View hosts weren't ready to hear, that despite their luxury lifestyles, they somehow think they understand the struggles of everyday Americans better than those Americans themselves. It's like someone who's never had a peanut allergy explaining to you why your EpiPen is unnecessary. The disconnect was painfully obvious. When cornered by Maher's observations, Whoopi pulled the classic change the subject move. She tried shifting the conversation with her comment about the former prosecutor who actually had policy plans to help the working class. Classic deflection tactic.
Or put off her show. As much as I totally disagree with her crazy statement, the person at ABC News said, I've asked her to take time to reflect and learn about the impact of her comments. Reflect. How insulting. Free speech. She should be there. She shouldn't get a timeout.
Not every single thing.
When you're losing an argument about apples, suddenly start talking about oranges. Whoopi might as well have asked everyone what they thought about the weather. But Maher wasn't having any of it. He dropped what might be called a statistical truth bomb, revealing polling data showing Black and Hispanic Americans are actually more patriotic and less obsessed with wokeness than white progressives. Talk about an awkward moment. The View panel's facial expressions changed faster than a chameleon on a rainbow.
And The View is a particularly weird place to do a cancellation.
It's called The View?
It's called The View.
That is insulting. It's so insulting to make a 65-year-old, I mean,
It's not called The Facts.
yeah, but
It's
isn't it interesting that it's called, I mean, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters
Turns out, the people they claim to champion don't necessarily share their views. The studio atmosphere grew tenser as Maher pointed out that The View hosts seemed totally disconnected from what regular voters actually care about. While the hosts were busy discussing abstract concepts and political theories, most Americans were worried about practical concerns like jobs, inflation, and neighborhood safety. The panel squirmed visibly as Maher held up this mirror to their bubble-wrapped reality.
invented it a long time ago, but it's The View.
Well,
that's the problem in America.
But
There is
clearly
one view. They're going to sometimes have a very different opinion. And the answer is not to make them sit in a corner for 2 weeks.
Right, and
one
that's clearly
true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner.
That's correct. I think that's not
As the conversation heated up, Whoopi's body language told its own story. When logical arguments weren't working, she resorted to the classic talk show host power move, talking over her guest. She interrupted Maher repeatedly, trying to drown out his points with volume rather than substance. It's the debate equivalent of putting your fingers in your ears and yelling, "I can't hear you." But Maher, who spent decades sparring with guests on his own show, wasn't about to be silenced. He pushed back with a point that hit particularly close to home.
Much covered internal politics on that show, but I do think that, there is space.
But we grew up in two different worlds, which the white people imposed upon the black people.
Even that show does have space. When Whoopi said what she said, there was quick pushback from other panelists.
How wealthy celebrities living in gated communities with security teams can't understand why regular Americans might reject their lectures about privilege. The irony of millionaires preaching about inequality while sipping champagne wasn't lost on anyone watching. The tension in the studio reached its peak when Maher challenged The View's entire format with a simple but devastating question. When was the last time you had a genuine conversation with someone who disagrees?
They were like, oh, I don't know. Actually, I think that might not be right. That's it. Mission accomplished. We talked about it.
Okay, you see the point here? Again, I don't agree with her on Michael Vick. We just understand that part of our sorry racial history in this country.
The silence that followed spoke volumes. It was like asking fish about the concept of water. They've been swimming in their echo chamber so long they can't even recognize it anymore. In what became the most satisfying moment of the exchange, Maher caught Whoopi completely off guard by using her own contradictions against her. She found herself stammering, searching for words that simply wouldn't come. It was like watching someone try to solve a Rubik's Cube while blindfolded. A lot of twisting and turning, but ultimately going nowhere.
Is that the point of view from a black person is often going to be very different and sometimes shocking. Instead of just saying he's a beast, and he's a monster. This is a kid who comes from a culture where this is not questioned. To a white person. I pulled the quote from when Whoopi defended Michael Vick.
As the segment wrapped up, it was clear who had won this verbal sparring match. Maher got the last word while the View hosts scrambled to go to commercial, probably hoping viewers would forget what they just witnessed after a few ads for miracle weight loss products and luxury cars. What's really interesting about this whole Maher-Whoopi showdown is that Bill Maher isn't some right-wing talking head.
Remember Michael Vick was the football player who was electrocuting dogs? And I'm a lifelong PETA board member. This is part of his cultural upbringing. For a lot of people, dogs are sport. Also someone who believes the Nazis were very racist. Okay.
Oh, you.
But here's what she said about Michael Vick. He's from the South.
He's a lifelong liberal who simply had enough of the celebrity bubble nonsense. As Bill Maher himself continues to call out this hypocrisy, other liberal voices like Charlemagne the God are jumping on board too, pointing out how these wealthy celebs have zero clue what regular folks are dealing with day to day. The social media reaction tells the whole story. Tons of everyday people are cheering Maher on, feeling like finally someone's saying what they've been thinking all along. These millionaire celebrities living in gated mansions with security teams love lecturing the rest of us about our privilege while they jet off to climate conferences on private planes. The real champs in all this? Just regular Americans who are sick and tired of being talked down to by rich famous people who haven't pumped their own gas in decades.